Okay, Josephina, let's sit down. That's a good girl. So when I started this channel, I made a commitment that I wasn't going to get political on it because I really didn't want to alienate anybody. That is just not my style. At the same time, just with everything going on, I started to feel like, if I don't say anything, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Like, I really feel like I need to talk about some things. So I hope that you'll listen. Hello friends, welcome to Chickenlandia. My name is Dahlia. I'm a backyard chicken educator, also known as the president of Chickenlandia. Raising chickens has been the best way for me to find peace and joy in my life, and I want to help you find that too. So my friends, we're back today with another different kind of video. I don't normally make videos like this. Before I get started, I do want to just give you guys an update on Josephina. This is my chicken that had her leg amputated and she's doing really well. In fact, she doesn't really want to sit with me right now, but Josephina, I'm sorry, you got to sit with me right now. Okay, just relax. She did poop on me already. I usually shoot my videos about a week or two in advance. I don't know exactly when you guys are gonna see this video, but by the time you see it, actually it's my hope that the fever pitch I'm feeling just across our country right now has calmed down a little bit, because right now it's really, really divided. There's a lot of anger out there. There's a lot of just absolute fury out there right now. There's a lot of pain and there's a lot of division. And whenever something like that happens, regardless really of what brings it on, that can get really hard for me. I'm a very sensitive person, and so when I see other people are in pain, when I see other people are angry, when I see people fighting, it's very hard for me. And I know some of you out there are the same. I want to start out by just kind of explaining my unique experience. I was born in a little town called, well, it's not so little anymore, but at the time it was a little town called Duncanville, Texas. And my parents are immigrants from Guatemala. They came to the United States in the late 60s. I was born in 1974. And we were basically one of the only Hispanic families in our town. It was quite the experience, but it gave me a really unique perspective because, not only did I grow up with my culture and with everything that brought with it, but I also grew up in basically, I think what you would call poor white America. Like, I grew up in a relatively poor neighborhood. It was mainly white people, and just growing up, that's who I was around a lot of the time. And I spent a lot of time in like trailer parks and other places that would definitely be considered lower income. I have seen just systemic poverty, and that was my experience. And so because of that community and also my own community, those are both within me. Those are both part of who I am. So a few days ago, something very shocking and disturbing happened to a very famous conservative commentator. And, whatever you think about him, it certainly sent out a real shockwave across the country. It was very disturbing. There was video going around about it. I could really feel that. And I can't imagine what his family and especially his children must be going through. So I'm going to tell you something right now, and I really don't want you to leave this video. I want you to hear me out because, like I said at the beginning, it is never my intent to alienate anybody. And, when I started this channel, the whole reason it's called Welcome to Chickenlandia is because I want everyone to feel welcome here. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to make this place where I felt like I belonged and where other people felt like they belonged. Because the way that I grew up, because I was kind of like between worlds, I always kind of felt like I was the outside looking in, regardless of whether it was my friends' community or my own community. I just kind of felt like I didn't fit in anywhere. And I don't like that feeling, and I don't want to give that feeling to anybody else. That's why Chickenlandia is not just called Chickenlandia. It's called Welcome to Chickenlandia, because I want everybody to feel welcome here. So just go into this knowing that that's my intent. So I didn't agree with a lot of what this conservative commentator would say. Some of the stuff, some of the rhetoric that he said is really hard for me. And you got to understand, like I said, I'm the daughter of immigrants. And when I think about my story and when I think about why my parents are here, they're here because of U.S. involvement in their country. Like the CIA went into their country, they divided everybody, they sparked a civil war, and the country just fell apart. That civil war lasted for, I think, 38 years, and it really destroyed my parents' country. And what happened is the reason that we went in there and we meddled with that government is because there were companies, very powerful companies, one in particular in the United States, that had interest in the resources there. So when the country was fighting and devolving into civil war and everything that goes along with that, all these people's resources were just taken out from underneath them. And so I understand why people are desperate to get out of their countries and to get here or to get anywhere where they feel like they can, have a safer time and take care of their family and have a decent quality of life. A lot of the reasons why people do that is because we've gone in and we've really harmed these countries and we've harmed these people. And to be honest with you, I see that is happening to our own country now. Like, we are having our resources stolen out from under us. So I kind of want to give us that common ground if you've never heard that before or if you hadn't realized that before. And some of the stuff that Mr. Kirk would say, to me, it was not really understanding, why there were so many immigrants trying to get in here and what the intent really is. It's hard for me to hear that. I really try to understand, but that is very difficult for me. And I hope you can understand that. The other thing is, he was in agreement with some of the things that some of our foreign policies in the Middle East that I absolutely don't agree with. And if you've been watching my channel for any time, any period of time, you would know that I am very anti-war. And I'm a pacifist. I am 100% against the harming of innocent people, especially. I don't like our involvement in all these wars and our involvement with harming innocent people. It's very terrible in my eyes. Even though he was young and he may have changed the way that he viewed some of that stuff. In fact, it kind of seems like he was going to. I didn't agree with, again, some of the things he said. And some of the, in my opinion, like the justifications he made for some really terrible things that I think that our country is doing across the world. What I will say is that even though I didn't agree with him, I am against violence across the board. Like I said, I'm a pacifist. So when I see something happen to someone, something just really horrific, that affects me greatly. And I think that it's not a good road to go down to start to justify political violence. It's very, very dangerous. Believe me, I know this. My family is from a country that was in a civil war for 40 years, and they are still recuperating from that. The consequences of war and everything that goes along with it, it doesn't end in one generation. It really affects generation after generation after that, and just creates a lot of trauma for everybody involved. I don't want that for this country. I don't want us to just devolve into something that we can't come back from. And, you know, if we're justifying violence on either side, that's a real slippery slope that it scares me. You know, I mentioned earlier that when Guatemala was embroiled in a civil war, all of their resources were taken out from under them. And that is called divide and conquer. You know, my dad talked about it all the time. He was really smart in that arena, and he understood what the powers that be can do in order to manipulate and control a population so that they can gain power. And, you know, if we here in this country are just completely at each other's throats and we're accusing each other of our problems, it's worth it to look at why we're doing that and what can happen while we're doing that. So if we're fighting each other, if we're distracted in that way, if we're blaming each other, are we really looking at who put us in this situation? And are we really paying attention to what they can do during that time when we're distracted? Because I'm telling you, they can take things away from us. I've seen it. I know about it because I was taught about it as a child, and I don't want that for us. I really don't. You know, in a factory farm, chickens are not allowed to live the way that they're supposed to live. They can't practice their flock dynamics. They don't have a flock in a factory farm. They can't pick and scratch. They can't take a dust bath. There's no hierarchies. They're just in these cages, and basically what they have is food and water. Like, they have all the food they could ever want. They have water, and they can survive, but they can't live the way chickens are supposed to live. And what happens is eventually they start to go after each other. When their needs aren't met, they will literally start to tear each other apart. And you can see it whenever you see a factory hen come out of those walls and they're still alive, and maybe somebody adopted them and they're missing a whole bunch of feathers and they might be kind of scabbed up. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll debeak the chickens, or they'll cut off a tip of their beak to prevent them from hurting each other. But that's what happens. That's what happens when they're not being allowed to be in a flock, to take care of each other, to have the experience that chickens are supposed to have. And I know that it's really hard to see someone else's humanity when you feel like they're not seeing your humanity. It's really hard. You know, you could feel like they hate you, or they don't want you to live, or they don't want you to be who you are, and it is very difficult to acknowledge someone else's humanity when you're feeling that way towards them. But my question to you is, how do you want to live? Do you want to live in a community where we can talk to each other, where we can work on our differences without being manipulated, without being pitted against each other, you know, where we can see each other's humanity and hopefully overcome a lot of these differences that we have so that we can live in a better world without being oppressed by the people that put us in the cages? It's not your neighbor that put you in a cage. You know, your neighbor might say something that you don't like, that you think is really wrong, but they're not the ones that put us in a cage. Someone else did. And I think that's where we need to focus our attention on, because we can't change each other by shaming each other into seeing things differently. We can't. And I think really that the reason why we're manipulated into focusing on these things that we can't change about each other is because they don't want us to focus on the things that will actually create change. Like issues of class, that's an issue that we could actually make some changes on. And if we had a lot of people, if they had all their needs met, they might look at their neighbor differently. They might be different people. We would get along better if we had our needs met. And right now our needs are not being met. But instead of focusing on those that are not meeting our needs and not doing what they're supposed to do for us, we're focusing on each other. And I'm telling you guys, it can go downhill really fast. We have to get along. I know some of you guys are really going to disagree with me on this, but I hope that my heart came through, because no matter where you are, my heart is with you, and my heart wants the best for you. You know, it wants the best for everybody. Just as much as I want it for Josephina and my flock of chickens, I want it for humanity. I've always wanted that from the time I was born. So I hope that you can see that in me. I know some of you are going to have opinions about this. You can put your opinions in the comments. Please be cordial with each other. Remember what I've said in this video. And above all, I want you to know that you are always welcome in Chickenlandia. Bye.